Hey, welcome to Speaking of Horses. I'm Wayne Williams, and today we're just outside El Paso, Texas. El Paso is just about 3 to 4 miles to the south of me, and the beautiful mountains, the range that El Paso kind of horseshoes around. We're right at the New Mexico-Texas border, actually. Matter of fact, you see the sign here, New Mexico on one side, Texas on the other. And we're at the home of Kayden and Tracy, Kayden. And they also have specialized saddles. But our main thrust here, not only to come to beautiful West Texas, right down here along the Mexican, New Mexico, and Texas border in January, where it's 60 degrees in January, but to go through all of the aspects relating to saddle fitting. So stay tuned. We got a great show for you from West Texas, and as Marty Robbins would say, from that old town of El Paso. We'll be right back.
And the Specialized saddle will be the last saddle you'll ever need to buy, because our patented adjustable fit system lets you precisely fit your horse or use the same saddle on different horses you may get in the future. Don't forget to check out our website and try a Specialized saddle. You'll be glad you did.
Speaking of Horses is made possible through the support and courtesy of Chaff Hay. Chaff hay is truly pasture in a bag. Without beneficial bacteria and enzymes in the digestive tract, horses and livestock neither have good digestion nor absorption of any nutrients that occur. Chaff hay creates all of this for you with its yeast culture and pasture in a bag. Thank you to Chaff Hay and Speaking of Horses. Hey, welcome to Speaking of Horses. We're here just outside El Paso, Texas. We're at a wonderful facility out in the desert. The mountains are around us. It's 60 degrees in January, and you can see behind us there's quite an Old West flair to this, but we're here for a wonderful endurance ride, and it's a Southwest region endurance ride, the first of the year. So we're going to interview some of the people, let you know about some of the things going on. So stay with us from El Paso, Texas. Well, actually, we're in New Mexico here. We've just crossed the border, but a lot to come on Speaking of Horses. Well, Wayne Williams, Speaking of Horses, and hey, we're in the beautiful Southwest. Actually, we're just outside El Paso, Texas, and this is Diamond, beautiful Arabian, and we are at the Southwest Region Endurance Race. Is that correct?
Yes.
First race of the season. And Amanda is the rider. You just finished way ahead of the rest of the group. There's nobody else here, Amanda. You have finished way ahead of the group. So tell us a little bit about this meet being the first of the year here in January. But it doesn't matter if it's January. It's, golly, what is it? It must be 60 degrees and sun shining here. So tell us a little about this race.
Well, it's a 50-mile ride. We do in 3 loops. In between, you have a 45-minute hold in each loop, and I just went out with Diamond today and let him ride his ride, and we did a good job.
You did a very good job. About how far ahead of the rest of the group are you?
The second place rider was 35 minutes behind me, and from there, no more riders have come in.
Well, we're going to get some footage here in a little bit. It might be dark, but we're going to get some footage of when all the other riders come in. So now, tell us a little bit about Diamond here. I was talking with David a bit ago, and he was giving me a little history on Diamond, but Diamond kind of came in and was reworked and retrained for this?
Well, you've got to, when you ride endurance, it's not just getting on a horse and go. You've got to do some groundwork and some preparation, and Diamond had a bad problem in that he only knew one lead, which is when a horse is loping one side. And so through his whole record, he had a lot of pulls, which means he didn't finish rides because he didn't know that another side of him existed. So we've done about 6 months of arena work, just helping him to work in both leads, and so that's why we were so successful today, because he's really talented.
Well, I know, and a lot of people may or may not realize this. I know most of the true horse people do, but if a horse does not necessarily communicate from one side of the brain to the other. So if you despook them for something on the left side, that doesn't mean they're despooked on the right. That's why you said you had to go back to work and say he had to figure out he had another side, right?
Yes. So you know you can take off on 2 different sides. You had to figure out that there was a right foot that could lead.
So you're actually cooled out, you got the sheet on, and he's alert. The mountains are in the background. What a great day, and you're just waiting on the rest of them. So are you going to then campaign him all season for the endurance rides out here?
I think so. I'm going to be doing a lot of riding with him because we've done so much preparation to get him ready for this, so he's going to be competing.
Well, that's good. And we're going to show you a little more footage later on here about some of the way these horses are trained for endurance and how they do it at the ranch here in El Paso. So stay with us. We're going to show you some of the other horses coming in and the little training tips from the farm as well. And we'll have you in some of this footage again later as well, Amanda. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we're here in El Paso at this endurance ride with two-time national endurance riding champion David Kayden. And David, welcome. And we're going to ask you to just explain a little bit about the sport of endurance riding.
Well, you know, Wayne, endurance riding is long-distance riding. It's over unimproved trails. A lot of times it's just cow trails. We're following ribbons tied from bush to bush, and it really gives you a chance to see a lot of country and spend a lot of time on your horse in a non-pressurized situation. Now, I think it's an alternative for a lot of people who have been in the ring doing various competitive things, and they just want to get out and get away from all that, and that's what I found so appealing about endurance. It's the time clock does your ultimate selection of placings and not some subjective judge. But it's not really all about racing either. The sport, the motto of endurance is to finish is to win. You've got 12 hours to complete a 50-mile event. And if you finish within that time and you've got a sound horse and he passes the vet check, you've done your job and you've completed, and that's what it's all about. It's enjoyed by all ages of people at all different levels of competitiveness. There's a few people that want to win and they train hard and they prepare themselves and they come and go fast. But most people, they're averaging 5 to 8 miles an hour throughout the day. They may go gallop a little bit, but it's mostly just sustaining a nice easy trot with intermittent walking. So it's not like yeehaw, race the horse. The whole sport is predicated about taking care of the horse. We have a series of vet exams every 10 to 20 miles. The horse has to stop, and if the horse is stressed at all, he's eliminated from the ride, so he's won't injure himself. So it's just really a neat sport. And if someone's looking for something different to do with their horse, they can go to the American Endurance, AERC.org. Stands for American Endurance Ride Conference, and get a lot more information.
Well, it's a neat sport, and I love the concept of to finish is to win, because anytime you're out here doing good things and fun things with your horses and enjoying it and fulfilling the mission you're on, you're a winner.
Yeah, that's right. And can't beat time spent in the saddle on a good horse, and especially in weather like this.
You got it. David, thank you very much. All right. Welcome to Speaking of Horses. I'm Wayne Williams, your host, and today our subject is going to be saddle fitting. Now, it's a subject that many people have a problem with, but they haven't always addressed it. And sometimes the problems are there and you don't even know it. And it's a kind of a critical thing to make sure that saddle fits right and for you to understand the problems that you may not even know you have. Now, my guest today is Mr. David Kayden. And David is a two-time national endurance riding champion, knows an awful lot about making a saddle perform well on a horse, and an awful lot about saddle fitting. So we're going to welcome David to the show. And first of all, David, we're going to have you kind of run down all of the issues of saddle fit that people may not even be aware of.
Well, you know, Wayne, saddle fitting is such a fascinating topic, but it's one of those things that as I begin to learn about it, and begin to understand some of the challenges and what I was looking for, and it's easy to see some of the effects of it, ill-fitting saddle. The more I learned, the more I realized how much I didn't know. It was just like peeling an onion. You get to a layer, and there's so much underneath that, and what causes that. And it's been a pursuit now of about 10 years to arrive at the level of understanding that we've come to about saddle fit, and it's the elements are so far-fetched. You know, padding, the pad you use under the saddle, people don't realize what a key component of saddle fit that is. And we'll start by a little bit about how to look for maybe you have a saddle fit problem. In my own experience, I began this great saddle hunt by getting involved, as you said, in the sport of endurance back in 1998. And I was riding 3 different horses, and they were all shaped a little bit different. And I ended up with 7 saddles,
and it was kind of a musical chairs approach, and none of them worked quite well. And I would make templates and send it back to various saddle makers, and they were trying, but I was just struggling with this concept of how can I make an adjustment for something right here on this horse in real time. You know, not only are different horses different, but an individual horse goes through something of a metamorphosis as he ages. He's always changing as you ride him in different conditions. Sometimes if you're riding in hills more, the shoulders begin to get more muscled and developed, and they also change from winter to summer, depending on their grazing condition and how much you're riding him. So it's a moving target, and getting it right was so frustrating. So I'm happy to share some of the insights into the world of saddle fitting that I've learned, and discuss a little bit about our solution to this complex problem.
Well, you know, people, like I said, we mentioned earlier that they don't necessarily know they have it. What are some, let's start with this, what are some of the common mistakes that people may make in putting a saddle on a horse for the first time? Before we get to actually your solutions to this, which are very, very unusual and nice solutions, but kind of run down the problems with like saddle pads and various things, the mistakes people make, before they even realize they're doing it.
Well, the odds that you're going to be able to just pick a saddle off the rack and put it on a particular horse and it's going to fit just right, I think is something akin to the odds of walking in a shoe store and grabbing the first pair you see and that they're going to fit your feet just right. Horses are all different shapes and sizes, and unfortunately, today the Western saddle industry is just sort of making one size. It used to be they had two sizes. They had what they call a full quarter horse and a semi-quarter horse bars. And increasingly, it's even more difficult to find the full quarter horse, which was a 7-inch gullet width at the front of the pommel. Instead, they're all standardizing on the so-called semi-quarter horse, which is 6.5 inch. And and that's only one of three dimensions of saddle fit. That's width. We're dealing with three different dimensions: the width, and that's obviously to fit the width of the shoulders, and you must also accommodate the width of your saddle pad or blanket, but we'll get into more of that later. And then there's the longitudinal degree of curve that your horse's back, or what I call the rock or the arc of the horse's back. And then laterally there's the angle. Most bars are set at 45 degrees in the front and 22 degrees in the back, but oftentimes horses are falling off at more than 20 degrees, 22 degrees. That's a fairly flat angle, so younger horses especially. So maybe that bar is just touching along its top edge. So we've got three dimensions to consider. I've often said it would be so nice if saddle manufacturers would come up with some sort of sizing for these three different dimensions, like we have width and length of shoe sizes. If you could get different angles in front and back and widths, and you could walk in and say, I need a 6 double E or whatever to accommodate your particular horse, and we had an easy-to-use templates to determine your back, then people could find a way. But exclusive of that, we've got to look for other solutions. How do you know your saddle doesn't fit? Well, obviously there's the behavioral issues. Sometimes bucking is so often initially caused by the horse being uncomfortable. Horses just don't come with this, I want to throw you off. I think instinctively horses want to cooperate with people. A lot of them do, and until they learn that they're in discomfort or pain, and the way to get rid of that pain is get the rider off. So I think that bucking often starts with bad saddle fit. Once it becomes a learned habit, it can continue even after you fix the saddle fit issue. But sometimes going downhill, the saddle, if it has a bad fit and it's bridging, which is our most common saddle fit issue, that's where the saddle is just resting on the front and back, and it's not resting in the middle because it's been lifted off. It's not wide enough to accommodate the padding and the horse, so it's perched up there and it's just digging in. And that discomfort is really exacerbated and digs in when a rider's riding downhill. So if you find your horse taking real short, choppy steps, reluctant to go downhill, going downhill sideways, that's one of the issues, that your saddle's probably not wide enough. One time, two of these situations combined when we were just starting to ride. My family was getting more involved. I had actually grown up riding horses, but my dad decided later in life that after he retired he would take up riding, and he and I were taking a little trail ride at our family farm, and we went down through a gully, and immediately the horse he was riding began to buck, and bucked him up high in the air, and he came down on the horn and broke 2 ribs and cracked his tailbone, and it was a pretty bad wreck. And I at the time had no understanding that was caused by the saddle really digging into that horse's shoulders as he walked downhill. Reluctance to leave the barn is another common issue that's so often associated with saddle fit. If the horse is not comfortable, if this riding experience isn't fun for him, you can see how it would permeate all aspects of your riding experience. That's why saddle fit is so important. Your saddle is what transmits all of your weight to that horse. Sure, we communicate with the horse with our hands and our feet and our aids, but that's intermittent. All of the time, how you apply your weight to that horse's back and whether or not it's comfortable for him, you can see is the strongest effect of whether or not that's going to be a pleasurable experience for that horse, and whether he's going to want to freely do it and go out happy and free and move out freely, or he's going to want to say, this hurts, let's don't do this again.
Well, and to go along with that, what you're talking about is, now we're going to watch a little footage here, but we're going to have some horses, really moving free and nice. So just watch this. And this movement is what you're after. And the movement of these horses freely and actively is what you want, because you want your horse to be comfortable so he can be very, very into what he's doing, rather than always having his mind focused back on pain or a pressure point. So as you can see by the horses we're showing you here, this is really a critical thing to get the best movement from a horse. And it's that's what we're all after, the best performance. Now we're going to be back with Mr. David Kayden in just a little bit, and David's going to show you some of the solutions to these saddle fitting problems. So stay with us right here on Speaking of Horses. Speaking of Horses is made possible through the support and courtesy of Phototonic Health. If you love your horses and pets, Phototonic Health has the AccuLite system to help with a safe, speedy recovery from injury. Low-cost, effective red light therapy. Check it out at Phototonic Health. And thank you for your support of Speaking of Horses. Speaking of Horses is made possible by Equessentials Horse Care Products, for products developed by a horse person, for horse people, and horse use. Please check out Equessentials Horse Products. They have all the products you need to perfectly care for your horse's coat and physical appearance and well-being. Equessentials. Hey, we're back. David Kayden is right here. Right now, we're going to take you through all of the solutions that David has come up with for the saddle fitting problems, the solutions through his wonderful line of saddles, Specialized Saddles. So, David, give us a bit of a rundown on how you solve these problems.
Well, thanks, Wayne. As I was saying, horses are three-dimensional. You've got the dimension of width, you've got the dimension of the degree of rock, and the angle of the horse. Some saddles on the market do have adjustable width, particularly in some of the English saddles. The flex panel saddles have adjustable angles, but they flex in the middle and don't provide any support here, so the pressure is concentrated at those 4 points of attachment. And treeless saddles are better than a bad fitting tree, but they don't have any structural members to spread the pressure out. So all the pressure goes just right where it's applied. If you stand in your stirrup leathers, it's all concentrated right across the back and across the spine. If you sit, it's all right there on the spine or under your seat. So none of the other systems that are out there, I think, do an adequate job, and this has been sort of verified by the use of computer pressure pad analysis. Our system lets you independently adjust the width, the rock, and the angle, and it's all done without any tools other than a pair of scissors. It's really easy. You can see the fit of your horse, and you can make very slight incremental changes. You can use the same saddle on different horses, don't have to send it back, don't have to do any fitting, and it's really easy. We make a full line of saddles. This is an example of one of our Western lines. This is an A-fork with full floral tooling. This is one of our endurance saddles. This is the international model. Not only is it adjustable for the horse, but it's also adjustable for the rider. The stirrup positions of your stirrup leathers, we actually have 3 different positions. You can put them forward, balanced, or centered. The knee rolls are actually adjustable. They Velcro on. You can move them forwards or back, so you can get it right where you need it. If those are a hair too far forward, they don't offer any support, and they're too far back, they hold your knees open, they're not comfortable. So this is a critical element. We make them in different sizes. We also make extra large sizes now, too.
Thank you.
for full-size riders and horses. By popular request, we've introduced a full line of 18s, 19s, and 20s in our Western sizes. Before, we just had 14s, 15s, and 16s in half sizes. We even tailor our seat design to fit your type of riding. I originally developed a flatter seat like this For endurance, I'm a very active rider. I ride at speed. I'm up moving and posting, and I didn't like a pocket. But recreational riding, there's a lot of security and comfort to be had in a more of a curved seat. So we offer a trail seat for all-around recreational riding, or the flatter endurance seat, so that you can custom order your saddle to meet your particular type of riding.
And that seat design, that flat seat design, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way you position that seat has an awful lot to do with the pressure points on the horse when you put that saddle on, right?
Well, it does. It has more to do with how comfortable it is for you. For instance, if you have a curved, deeper seat, you're making contact over a longer radius. You know, you're making contact from here to here when you're sitting on it. When you're sitting on a flat seat, your area of contact is smaller. So the result is a perception that the seat is harder when it's flatter, because all of your pressure is on a smaller area. So by making the seat more dipped, then you have a longer and much larger area of contact, so lower pounds per square inch.
And that would relate, I think, to just exactly what you're doing with the saddle on the horse. You're making the seat for the person spread out and much more comfortable, not pressure points, and that's exactly what you're doing down here on the horse.
Wayne, you're so right. It's all about how much surface area you have, how much weight you're applying, and then how many pounds per square inch you have. You know, in a horse, we want that PSI to be 3 or less. 3 is the magical number at which blood flow starts to be compromised. At 4, over 4 PSI, it's significantly compromised, and it can start to cause cell death. And with our computer pressure pad, we're often seeing readings in the shoulders and loins area with saddles that don't fit of 5 PSI or more, and you can get muscle atrophy and damage. And so it's really important to provide enough contact area through good fit and matching those angles that you're spreading the pressure out, and the tissue and the back gets good blood flow and the horse is comfortable.
Now, why don't you lift one of these up, and I'm going to move around here. We're going to kind of show the people how you adjust that. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Take a look at this now, how this works. So
we make fitting cushions that are part of the saddle. They don't shift, unlike pads that might move and everything. This is part of the saddle. And we make these in 3 different thicknesses. So every saddle has a 4-inch range of width adjustment using the 3 different thicknesses of fitting cushions. Now, any one set, for instance, I've got the 3/4 inch on this saddle. Any set has a 1-inch range. So you fit it to your horse in the spring, and he gains a little weight in the summer being on good pasture, gets a little wider. To make it wider, you simply do this. Just pull that down. Whatever unit of distance, I pull that down, and in this case I pulled it a 1/2 inch. Pulled it a 1/2 inch on each side, and I've made this saddle 1 inch wider. It's that simple. We also have these inserts that are wedge shaped at all different angles. We have them in 3/8, 1/2, and 3/4. And you snap these in place right here. This one is actually cut to fit this side. There's left and right sides. This goes on the bottom edge of the bar to change this angle, so you can match the contour of this pad exactly to fit your horse's back. You simply look. If there's a gap, you pick the right insert to snap in place to fill the gap, snap it back in place. It's so easy. It takes about 2 minutes to change a saddle from one horse to another. And with a little practice, anyone can do this. And when you buy a saddle, by the way, you get a DVD that teaches you step 1, 2, 3. Adjust the width, adjust the rock, and adjust the angle, and shows you how to do that.
David, that's really an amazing way to do. I mean, I love this concept and everything, and and it just makes everything more comfortable for the horse. And what I love is the fact that you think about changing horses, but your own horse, as you said earlier. I mean, I happen to have, my wife and I, 2 or 3 horses that are pushing that 30 age limit, and they're still sound, so you still want to ride them once in a while. Obviously, the bone structure is more pronounced than it was when they were 7, so you can still take your favorite saddle and go to your favorite horse, but that horse has changed a bit, so now you can make that saddle fit that horse, and you haven't even changed horses, but the horse has aged just like people, and the body structure has changed.
You know, another thing, Wayne, very few horses are the same on each side. Just as people tend to be right-handed or left-handed, horses tend to have a dominant side. Usually with horses, the majority of them are left side dominant, and the left shoulder is usually slightly larger than the right shoulder. Now, if it's significant, it'll cause the saddle to want to slip to the right. So often people are thinking that they're riding crooked because they're always having to adjust their saddle because it's wanting to lean, and they don't realize that it's asymmetry in their horse's shoulders that's causing that. We have the only system that lets you independently adjust each side to accommodate that side of the horse. You can accommodate that larger shoulder by creating more room, take that pressure off, and your saddle stay in place better.
We've got a traditional Western saddle here, and I want to show you how to check your saddle fit at home. I've used a single fold Navajo blanket, fairly thin one, and a very thin pad. This is actually our Western pad we made to use with our saddle. These two together aren't even quite an inch thick. So if you're using a thicker pad, the problem I'm going to show you is even worse. A lot of people think if their saddle doesn't fit, their horse is getting a sore back, they add another pad, and that actually makes it worse. It's because of the influence of the different angles. 45 degrees, you get time and a half as your pad thickness, your vertical and horizontal lift. 22 degrees, you get 115% instead of 150% vertical lift. So you lift more in the front than the back when you add padding, proportional to the thickness of the padding that you're adding. And the more that difference, the more it lifts it off the back here in the middle. Well, how do you tell if it's off the back? You know, one of the best tools I found is get a common household spatula. I've actually cracked this one a little bit so it bends around the horse's back. And I can put it in place and reach under here and feel. And you can have someone put a little weight on the saddle. It's difficult to do this if someone's sitting on the saddle, but someone can push. Now I'm going to feel the space, and I can tell that I'm not touching at all till I get to here. About right here, and I start to make contact, and my spatula stops. I can freely move it forward till I get to there. And I'm pushing quite hard, and it stops here.
Speaking of Horses is made possible through the support and courtesy of Windmill Halters. Top quality halters, leads, collars, and the like for all of your needs, and they can all be monogrammed specifically to meet the name of the horse or dog or the like that you have. Here we see some examples of wonderful monogramming. MonogramHorsehalters.com is the website. You can order online, even specialty fan hangers, and you can have that special horse chair monogrammed just for you. Thank you to Windmill Halters, supporting Speaking of Horses. Speaking of Horses is also made possible through the courtesy of Equine Technologies. For all of your hoof treatment, hoof care, and hoof-related infectious problems, please contact Equine Technologies.